I divorced my dying husband and I have no regrets, but don't rush to judge me. I signed the divorce papers 3 weeks before my husband's terminal diagnosis became imminent. Everyone thinks I'm a monster. Maybe I am. But let me tell you what nobody knows before you decide. I was 23 when I married David. He was 28, stable, kind, the kind of man your parents pray you'll bring home. We had that picture-perfect wedding everyone posts about. 2 years later, we had Sophia. Life looked exactly like it was supposed to. But somewhere between year 5 and year 7, I realized I'd married a stranger. Not because he changed. Because I did. And I was too young and too scared to admit it. David got his diagnosis when Sophia was 4. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 18 months, maybe 2 years if treatment went well. I remember sitting in that doctor's office, holding his hand, nodding at words I couldn't process. Everyone expected me to fall apart. I didn't. I went numb. For 6 months, I played the role. I drove him to chemo. I smiled at the oncology nurses. I updated the Facebook prayer group. I put Sophia to bed every night and told her Daddy was going to be okay, even though we both knew I was lying. But here's what I couldn't tell anyone. I was suffocating. Not because of the cancer. Because I'd been suffocating for years, and the cancer just made it impossible to ignore. David was a good man. A great father. But we hadn't been in love for a long time. We'd been roommates who shared a mortgage and a child. And now I was supposed to spend the last precious years of my life watching him die, pretending we had something we didn't. I know how that sounds. I know. My sister cornered me at Thanksgiving. You look exhausted, she said. I told her I was fine. She said, Jessica, you're allowed to feel overwhelmed. This is hard. I almost laughed. She had no idea. The hard part wasn't the caregiving. It was waking up every morning knowing I was trapped in a life I never chose, with no escape hatch, because leaving a dying man makes you the villain in every story. That's when I started seeing Derek. Not physically. Not at first. He was a colleague, someone I'd worked with for years but never really noticed. We started having lunch. Then coffee. Then long conversations that bled into evenings. He listened to me. Not as David's wife or Sophia's mom, but as me. Jessica. The person I'd buried under all those roles. I told myself it was harmless. Just friendship. Just someone who saw me as more than a caregiver or a widow in waiting. But I knew. God, I knew. Every text message, every shared smile, every moment I looked forward to seeing him instead of going home, I knew exactly what I was doing. David noticed. Not that I was cheating. Just that I was distant. He'd reach for my hand during a movie and I'd flinch. He'd try to talk about the future, about what would happen after, and I'd change the subject. One night he asked me point blank, "Do you still love me?" I should have lied. Instead, I froze. And that silence said everything. The affair became physical 4 months before I filed for divorce. I'm not going to sugarcoat it or blame anyone else. I made the choice. Derek didn't seduce me. I wasn't confused or manipulated. I wanted out, and he was the door I walked through. I told myself David deserved honesty. That staying in a loveless marriage while he died was crueler than leaving. I convinced myself Sophia would be better off with a happy, single mom than a miserable married one. I built an entire narrative where I was brave for choosing myself. My lawyer thought I was insane. Wait until after, she said. You'll get everything. Life insurance, survivor benefits, sympathy. If you file now, you're the villain. I told her I couldn't wait. That I needed to be free. She looked at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. I told David on a Tuesday. He'd just gotten home from a treatment that left him pale and shaking. Sophia was at my mom's. I sat him down and said the words I'd rehearsed 1,000 times, I can't do this anymore. I want a divorce. He didn't yell. Didn't cry. He just stared at me. Then he said, "Is there someone else?" I could have lied. Should have lied. Instead, I said, "Yes." The sound that came out of him wasn't human. It was something deeper. Something breaking. He stood up, walked to our bedroom, and locked the door. I stood in the kitchen, shaking, waiting for him to come out and scream at me. He never did. 3 days later, he moved in with his brother. Took his pills, his medical records, and one suitcase. Left everything else. Didn't fight me on custody. Didn't ask for anything. Just signed the papers and disappeared from the house we'd built together. Sophia asked where Daddy went. I told her he needed to stay with Uncle James for a while because he was sick. She looked at me with those big, knowing eyes and said, "Did you make him leave?" I said no. But she knew. Kids always know. The divorce was final 5 weeks later. Fastest I'd ever seen a case move. David didn't contest a single thing. Didn't show up to court. His lawyer handled everything. I got the house, primary custody, everything I'd asked for. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt nothing. Derek and I went public 2 weeks after the ink dried. Pictures on social media. Dinner dates. Normal couple things. My phone exploded. Friends I'd known for years blocked me. My mom called me crying, asking how I could do this to David, to Sophia, to our family. My dad didn't call at all. David's friends were worse. They left reviews on my business page. Sent messages calling me every name you can imagine. One of his coworkers showed up at my office and screamed at me in the parking lot until security escorted her out. I told myself they didn't understand. That they only saw the cancer, not the years of unhappiness before it. That I had a right to my own life. But late at night, when Sophia was asleep and Derek was at his own place, I'd sit in the dark and wonder if they were right. David's health deteriorated faster than anyone expected. His brother called me 6 months after the divorce. He's in hospice, James said. Weeks, maybe days. Sophia should see him. I took her the next day. The man in that bed didn't look like David. He'd lost 50 pounds. His skin was gray. But his eyes were still the same. Still kind. Still gentle. Even after everything. Sophia climbed into bed next to him. He wrapped one thin arm around her and whispered something I couldn't hear. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I stood in the doorway, an outsider in a moment that should have been mine. When visiting hours ended, Sophia didn't want to leave. She screamed and clung to him. I had to pry her fingers off his hospital gown. David looked at me then. Really looked at me. And he said, "Take care of her. That's all I ask. Not I forgive you. Not I hate you." Just a quiet plea from a dying man who knew his daughter needed a mother more than he needed revenge. I nodded. Because what else could I do? He died 4 days later. Sophia was at school. I got the call from James. He didn't say much. Just, "He's gone. Funeral Saturday. You're not welcome." I didn't go. I told myself it was for Sophia, to spare her the scene. But really, I was a coward. I couldn't face the people who knew what I'd done. Couldn't stand in that church and pretend I mourned him like a wife should. Derek held me while I cried. He said all the right things. That I'd made the best choice I could. That David was at peace. That life goes on. I wanted to believe him. But Sophia wouldn't speak to me. Not really. She answered questions. Did her homework. Ate dinner. But the light in her eyes was gone. And when she looked at me, I saw it. The same look David had given me that last day in hospice. Disappointment. The funeral happened without me. I saw pictures on Facebook. The church was packed. David's family, friends, co-workers, people from our old neighborhood. Everyone we'd known together, gathered to mourn the good man I'd left to die alone. Sophia went with my mom. She wore the black dress I'd bought her hair in the braids David used to do on Sunday mornings. She came home silent. When I tried to hug her, she went stiff. Like touching me hurt. Derek said she'd come around. That kid's so resilient. That I just needed to give her time and space and consistency. He had theories about everything. He'd never had kids of his own. 2 months after the funeral, Sophia started therapy. The school counselor suggested it. Said she was withdrawing from friends, her grades were slipping, she'd stopped participating in class. I sat through the intake appointment while a stranger asked my daughter how she felt about her father's death. Sophia said. "Do you want to talk about it?" The therapist asked. Sophia looked at me. Then back at the therapist. Not with her here. That became the new normal. Therapy twice a week. Sophia talking to everyone except me. Teachers. Counselors. My mom. Even Derek tried, in his awkward way, to connect with her. She tolerated him. Barely. I threw myself into work. Took extra clients. Stayed late at the office. Told myself I was building a future for us, securing our financial stability. Really, I just couldn't be home. Couldn't sit in that house where David's ghost lived in every corner, where Sophia's silence screamed louder than words. Derek moved in 6 months after David died. It made sense financially. Emotionally. We were building a life together. Sophia needed stability. A father figure. Someone to fill the hole I'd created. She hated him. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just this quiet, constant resistance. She forgot to respond when he spoke to her. Left rooms when he entered. Refused to eat meals he cooked. I begged her to try. To give him a chance. To understand that life moves forward. She looked at me with those eyes, 7 years old and already exhausted, and said, "Daddy didn't get to move forward." Derek said she was manipulating me. That I was letting a child control my happiness. That David had been sick for so long, it was natural for Sophia to have complicated feelings, but we couldn't put our lives on hold forever. I wanted to believe him. Needed to believe him. Because if he was wrong, if Sophia was right, then everything I'd done had been for nothing. David's family sued for custody 3 months after Derek moved in. Grandparents' rights, they called it. Said Sophia was in an unstable environment. That I'd abandoned David in his final months. That I was prioritizing a new relationship over my daughter's well-being. My lawyer said we'd win. I had primary custody. I wasn't abusive or neglectful. Sophia was fed, clothed, in therapy. No judge would remove a child from her mother based on moral judgments about a divorce. But the hearing destroyed me anyway. David's mom took the stand. Talked about the night I told David the first wanted a divorce. How he called her sobbing, how he'd said he didn't know how to live without his family, how Sophia had asked him why mommy didn't love him anymore. She cried on the witness stand. Real tears, not performance. The judge handed her tissues. Then Sophia's therapist testified. Said Sophia displayed signs of complicated grief. That she felt abandoned by me emotionally. That she'd expressed feelings of guilt, wondering if she'd done something wrong to make Daddy leave, make Mommy stop loving them both. I wanted to scream. I hadn't abandoned her. I was right there. Every day. Trying. But the therapist's notes told a different story. A story of a little girl who ate dinner in silence, who asked to call Grandma instead of talking to Mom, who drew pictures in therapy of a family that didn't include me anymore. The judge ruled in my favor. Technically. I kept primary custody. But David's parents got visitation. Every other weekend, holidays, summer vacation. More time than most grandparents get. The judge's words still ring in my head. While the court cannot adjudicate morality, we must prioritize the child's emotional well-being. Sophia clearly needs connection with her paternal family during this difficult time. Derek said it was fine. That we'd still have Sophia most of the time. That maybe some space would help our relationship. That I should stop letting guilt drive every decision. But when Sophia packed her little suitcase for that first weekend at Grandma's, when she hugged David's mom with more warmth than she'd shown me in months, when she left without looking back, I knew. I'd won custody. But I'd lost my daughter. Work became my refuge. My punishment. My distraction. I took every project, every client, every opportunity to not be home. Derek complained I was never around. I told him I was building something. Securing our future. Paying for Sophia's therapy and the legal fees and the life we were supposed to be living. He proposed on our 1-year anniversary. Dinner at the restaurant where we'd had our first date as an official couple. Diamond ring. The whole production. I said yes because saying no meant admitting I destroyed my marriage for something that didn't work either. Sophia didn't come to the engagement party. She was at David's parents' house. They texted me a picture of her baking cookies with David's mom, flour on her nose, actually smiling. I hadn't seen her smile like that in months. The wedding was small. My side of the family barely showed up. My mom came out of obligation, spent the whole reception crying in the bathroom. Sophia was my flower girl, because not including her would have looked terrible. She walked down the aisle like she was marching to her execution. In the photos, everyone's smiling except her. Derek's family, his friends, the few people from work who came. And in the middle, this little girl in a white dress, staring at the camera with David's eyes, looking betrayed. I framed the photos anyway. Put them on the mantle next to the ones from my first wedding. A monument to progress. To moving forward. To choosing happiness. They came down 6 months later when Sophia stopped coming home from David's parents' house. Not legally. She still had to. Court order. But emotionally, physically, she was gone. She'd stay in her room the entire week. Wouldn't eat with us. Did her homework alone. Asked to call Grandma every night before bed. Counted down the days until Friday when she could leave again. Her therapist suggested family therapy. Derek refused. Said he wasn't the problem, that coddling Sophia's grief was making it worse, that she needed tough love and boundaries. I went alone with Sophia a few times. Sat on that couch while my daughter told a stranger she wished she lived with Grandma and Grandpa full-time. Why? The therapist asked gently. Because they loved Daddy, Sophia said. And they don't pretend he never existed. I wanted to argue. To explain that I wasn't pretending, I was healing, I was moving on, I was doing what adults do when marriages end. But she was 8 years old and her father was dead and I was married to someone else, and no amount of explanation would make that okay. Derek and I started fighting. Real fights. About Sophia, about money, about the fact that I'd promised him a fresh start and instead he'd gotten a haunted house full of ghosts. He said I was still married to David in every way that mattered. That I'd never actually left. That he was tired of competing with a dead man for space in my life. I told him he was being cruel. He said I'd been cruel when I dragged him into this mess. When I'd made him the villain in a story where he was just someone who fell in love with the wrong person at the wrong time. We separated a year and a half after the wedding. No dramatic fight. No betrayal. Just two people who realized they'd built a relationship on the rubble of my old life and expected it to be stable. Sophia didn't ask where Derek went. Didn't seem to notice. The day he moved out, she came home from school, saw his stuff gone from the living room, and went to her room without a word. I sat alone in that house. My house. The one I'd fought for in the divorce. The one that was supposed to represent my freedom, my choice, my right to happiness. It felt like a mausoleum. I'm writing this 2 years after David died. Sophia is 9 now. She lives with me during the school week and spends every weekend and holiday with David's parents. We have a routine. I pack her lunch, drive her to school, pick her up, make dinner. She does homework at the kitchen table while I answer work emails. We exist in the same space without really touching. Sometimes I try. I ask about her day. Her friends. What she's learning. She gives one-word answers. Not hostile. Just distant. Like I'm a caregiver, not a mother. Last week was the anniversary of David's death. Sophia asked to go to the cemetery. I drove her. Watched from the car as she sat by his grave, talking to him like he could hear her. She was there for an hour. When she came back, her eyes were red. What did you talk about? I asked. Just stuff, she said. Like what? She looked out the window. I told him I miss him. And that I'm sorry. Sorry for what? She didn't answer. Just kept staring out the window until we got home. I've stopped trying to justify what I did. Stopped telling myself David and I were already over, that the cancer just made me face it sooner, that I deserved love and happiness too. Maybe all of that's true. Maybe none of it matters. Because here's what I know now. I thought leaving David would free me. Instead, it trapped me in a story where I'm always the villain. Where every relationship I have is colored by what I did. Where my own daughter looks at me like a stranger. People ask if I regret it. If I wish I'd stayed, played the devoted wife, waited until after. I don't know how to answer that. Because the truth is complicated and ugly and doesn't fit into the neat moral categories people want. I regret hurting David. I regret what it did to Sophia. I regret the version of myself I had to become to walk away from a dying man. But I can't honestly say I regret leaving a marriage that was already dead. And maybe that makes me exactly the monster everyone thinks I am. I work. I pay bills. I show up to Sophia's school events and sit alone while David's parents sit with the other families. I date sometimes, but it never goes anywhere. Men hear the story eventually, one way or another, and they can't get past it. I tried explaining once. Told a guy I'd been seeing for a few months the whole truth. About the years of disconnection. The slow death of intimacy. The way the cancer diagnosis felt like a cage door slamming shut. He listened. Nodded. Said he understood. Then he never called again. My mom says Sophia will understand when she's older. That she'll see I was human, flawed, doing my best in an impossible situation. I want to believe her. But I've seen the way Sophia looks at pictures of David. The way she talks about him to her grandparents. The way she's constructed this perfect memory of a father who loved her unconditionally and a family that was whole. And in that story, I'm the earthquake that destroyed everything. Maybe she's right. Last month, Sophia's school had a Father's Day event. Dads and daughters, breakfast and crafts and photos. She asked if she could skip it. I said yes. But David's dad called later and asked if he could take her instead. As her grandfather. I agreed. I saw the pictures on Facebook. Sophia and her grandfather, making picture frames, eating pancakes, smiling. She looked happy. Really happy. The kind of happy I haven't seen in my own house in years. One of David's old friends commented, "She looks just like him." Someone else replied, "He'd be so proud." No one mentioned me. I want to tell you I've moved on. That I've built a new life. That Sophia and I have healed and found our way back to each other. That the people who judged me eventually understood. That I'm happy now, vindicated, proof that choosing yourself isn't always selfish. But I'd be lying. The truth is I live in this strange limbo. Not quite vilified, Not quite forgiven. Sophia's not estranged, but she's not really mine either. I have a career, a house, a life that looks functional from the outside. But there's this hollowness. This space where my family used to be. Some nights I dream about the alternate version. The one where I stayed. Where I held David's hand through every treatment, every setback, every terrifying conversation about death. Where I was there at the end. Where Sophia watched me love her father even when it was hard, even when I was tired, even when I wanted to run. In those dreams, I'm still sad. Still trapped in some ways. But Sophia looks at me different. With respect. With trust. Like I'm someone worth loving. Then I wake up to this life. The one I chose. The one where I'm free and alone and my daughter is a polite stranger who counts the days until she can leave. I don't know if that's justice or just consequence. I don't know if I deserve sympathy or contempt. All I know is that every choice comes with a price, and I'm still paying mine. Tomorrow is Sophia's 9th birthday. She asked to have her party at David's parents' house. With her friends from their neighborhood. I wasn't invited to help plan it. Just ask what time I'd drop her off. I'll go to the party. Stand awkwardly in the corner. Watch my daughter blow out candles surrounded by people who loved her father. I'll sing happy birthday with everyone else, my voice lost in the chorus. I'll give her a gift she'll thank me for politely before putting it aside. And then I'll drive home alone. To the house I fought for. The freedom I demanded. The life I chose. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Not looking for understanding. I'm just telling you what it looks like from the other side. After the divorce is final and the dust settles and the new relationship ends and your kid stops really seeing you as mom. It looks like this. Like sitting in a quiet house on your daughter's birthday, knowing she's happier without you. Knowing that choosing yourself meant losing everyone else. Knowing that the world moved on and found a way to love and remember the man you left, while you became the footnote. The warning. The cautionary tale. I divorced my dying husband. I don't regret leaving. But I regret everything that came after. And the truly brutal thing is, I'd probably make the same choice again. Because I couldn't breathe in that marriage. Because staying would have killed something in me. But knowing that doesn't make this any easier. Doesn't make Sophia love me. Doesn't make me less alone. Doesn't change the fact that I traded one prison for another, and this one doesn't even have the comfort of being blameless. So don't rush to judge me. You don't have to. I've already judged myself. Every day. In every silence from my daughter. In every missed moment. In every photo where she's smiling for someone else. And you know what the worst part is? I still don't know if I was wrong. Maybe that's my real punishment. Not the judgment of others. But this eternal uncertainty. This prison of my own mind where I'm both villain and victim, selfish and justified, free and trapped. I made my choice. I live with it now. And sometimes living with it feels like the hardest consequence of all.